This is regular Doomsday. No Murktides or Belful Strix or any of that mid-range stuff happening in here. Days, Force of Will, Doomsday, Dark Ritual deck. All right, about a minute left for predictions. Turn 1 Ponder from Kaplan. Saw Dave Kaplan earlier in the Twitch chat. Shout out to Kaplan.
Getting an untapped island. Playing Ponder.
Results. Mistake.
Turn 1 Ponder, it sounds like, for Eric. High Train Conductor J8 Stock says Food Chain is a nice engine with Fury ETB on stack, sack from Muxus. Yeah, that is pretty neat. That is pretty neat. 69% favored for Delver, says Twitch chat. Chat like in Delver here against Doomsday.
Oh, I can't. So it goes good.
Bloodstone. And I'll play a Dragon Switch Challenger.
Sounds good.
And I'll pass.
Drawing off that Ponder.
Yep.
Good.
A little bit of shortcut happening here. Brainstorm. No days.
Good old main phase containment. Almost good like that, right?
Those two cards.
The classic.
Seems like Eric's looking for mana. Finds it. I'm a young base god. Says, is Doomsday good for the format? I feel like it's the go-to combo deck based solely on win percentage. So Doomsday's, in my opinion, it's kind of a unique thing where it is a powerful combo deck, but it's very hard to play. Like, you have to know what you're doing. You can't just, it's not as easy to pick up and play as maybe, and I'm not trying to act like these decks don't take skill, so don't take it that way, but Reanimator, Sneak and Show, those decks are a little bit more straightforward as far as what you're trying to do. Step 1, put Creature in Graveyard. Step 2, reanimate it. It's a little bit more simple in that way. But Doomsday is tricky. So I think what we see happening is, and we were discussing this earlier today in the community, in our community Discord, is Doomsday is a very powerful deck, but it also takes a powerful wizard to pilot it. There's like 2 parts needed. You just have to know what you're doing. And it takes some practice. I know that doesn't really answer your question if it's good for the format. I would say it is good for the format. I mean, there's no Doomsday in Modern. There's no Doomsday in Pioneer. It's a pretty unique effect. We had something similar in Pioneer at one point with the... what was that Eldrazi that exiles your library and then Uthasa's Oracle or Jace? I forgot what that card was called. Inverter of Truth, thank you. Similar idea. But even that's a little bit more straightforward. You do the inverter, you exile your graveyard, and then you know what I mean? It's just... Doomsday's tricky. To play Doomsday in a competitive event and do well, that seems like such a difficult task. Like you're playing on hard mode. Some people can do it. And the deck is hard to play against in any meaningful strategic way a lot of the time too. A lot of decks are left using not ideal tools to try to beat it. Surgical, endurance, you know.
So it does contain the deck.
Yeah, Young Base God's saying it right, I think. It does. I guess the strength of the deck is balanced by the difficulty of play. I would say that's right.
I will Aganjo Tohnatsu.
Yeah, was it
4 damage target attacker.
Robert says, I've been watching a lot of Sawatari, and that dude is kind of insane with the deck. You won a challenge during Ragavan with it. Yeah. He's, I would say, leading the Doomsday community in the current format as far as, you know, showing everybody how to play the deck. One of the highest profile Doomsday players right now. And, you know, I personally know from the New York community and from the Legacy community in general, there are people out there that have just been jamming Doomsday this whole time. You know, when Deathrite was legal, they were jamming Doomsday. When Top was legal, they were jamming Doomsday. You know, like, and now all these years later playing Doomsday, they're finally getting their chance to shine. The deck is actually really good in the format now. And that's pretty cool. Yeah, Romario loves Doomsday. Yep. Every time I watch somebody play Doomsday, like on a stream or something like that, it just makes me feel like, wow, I suck at Magic. I have no idea what I would do in this situation. I feel like the kid taking a test and trying to copy the kid next to me answers because I didn't study. All right, Murktide coming down. Yeah, land's also a very difficult deck to play effectively. And you know, this is in no way a brag of any kind, because I don't even consider myself a master with the deck yet. But Goblins is also very difficult to play, in my opinion. The deck is really hard. There are a lot of decks that you can play against where you just don't have, at least at a first glance at the deck list, you don't have great tools to beat anything that they're doing. But if you know what you're doing, you can do it with Goblins. And I'm still trying to figure a lot of those out. Just like we were talking about the previous game against Doomsday. There are some Goblins players out there that might have won those games. Making different decisions than I did. All right. We're resolving Doomsday here. Looks like Eric only has one turn. Given the amount of power on the board on Dave's side. Death in Texas is not easy either, yeah. But of all the decks we're talking about that are difficult to play, I would say Doomsday is at the top. As far as the top competitive decks are concerned, Doomsday is very difficult relative to the others. To play optimally, to play at a competitive level and win, to make, you know, top 8s, top 16s, etc. To win events with Doomsday. Especially, you know, sometimes you get to, by the time you get into top 8, everybody knows what deck you're on. I mean, it takes some skill.
Okay, that's the fun.
Yeah, this guy's the first one. I think okay, I'll blink
He gets blown.
No desire to look.
Nope.
Okay. Play Cavern Souls. Yeah. Name Wizard. Sure. Float Wizard Blue. Cycle Edge of Autumn. Cycle Street Wraith.
You don't draw the card.
Cycle Street Wraith. Draw.
I'm just saying.
This is
Yeah.
a four right now.
And I'm shuffling
Float
up.
blue. Cycle Edge of Autumn. Use that blue and that to cast. That's a purple. Yeah.
This is me just looking for
Yeah.
Wow. Just understands how to play high-level constructed formats competitively. I would say Cloud Post, Delver, and maybe Reanimator are among the easiest decks to pick up. And yeah, maybe Stompy decks. Like Eldrazi Stompy or Mono Red Stompy. Burn is not easy. I would not say if you're gonna register a burn deck for a competitive REL event, you better know what the heck you're doing. Same for Turbo Depths. Those are difficult decks to play. Burn is a simple concept, but you better know like when you're supposed to cast spells. It is not always correct to say end of turn, bolt you. That is not correct every time. It's a little bit different than modern burn. Yeah, Crop Rot depths decks are hard to play. I would say Show and Tell is up there as far as easy to pick up, but it's hard to play well compared to the other ones I mentioned. Delver is kind of ideal because you have great tools, you have a great deck. You're playing with some of the most powerful cards in the format right off the bat. And if you've played, mid-range or fair decks in Modern proficiently, you can kind of, if you're aware of what's going on in Legacy, you understand what spells to watch out for, you know when to Wasteland, you have some understanding of timing for spells like Daze and stuff like that, you can probably do all right with Delver. Good place to start for a player new to Legacy, I would say. Yeah, Mono Red Prison is not one of the ones that's very difficult to pick up. That might be up on the top for as far as like an easy deck to get right into the format with, and you just know exactly what you're supposed to be doing in most situations. Another one, and these are lower tier decks, but like something like Legacy Humans or something like that might be kind of easy-ish. Merfolk. Those might be a little bit easier. Kind of like second-guessing what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to think of more decks that are a little bit on the easier side. Finton says, I took up Goblins thinking it would be straightforward. 3 years later, I still consider myself firmly in the beginner circle, so nuanced, not linear at all. Yeah, Goblins is very difficult, I find, to play proficiently. Like, I would not say that it's easy to pick up Goblins and 1 month later you'll top 8 a 1K with Goblins. It takes some reps. It's difficult to know what you're supposed to do in all situations. It's not as obvious as it may seem. It's not just turning red creatures sideways. Like a lot of the time, when I first picked up the Goblins deck, I would cast a Goblin Matron, and I would be looking through my deck, and I'm like, ooh, there's like 5 different creatures that I could get here, and one of them is the correct answer, and probably 3 of them will lose me the game, and I have no idea which one I'm supposed to get. Like, I just don't know the answer. It takes some practice. And there's a lot of funky lines with war marshals and war chiefs and skirt prospectors, and there's a lot of weird things you can do, but you got to know how to do them and when to do them. You see 2 Delvers on the table here for Kaplan? Pretty far along into this game too. As we talk about all the easy and hard decks. The other thing about Goblins is, without going off on a whole tangent about Goblins for an hour, but you have to kind of pace your plays too, because creatures like Pashalik, creatures like Sling Gang, War Chief, can you afford to let them die? Or do you have to hold on to them for the right moment? Having some patience and not just slamming Goblins every turn is hard. And as easy as it may seem obvious to like suicide some Goblins to get in some damage or to get some effects like making mana or something, but really a lot of the time you just want to have as many Goblins on the board as possible and not attack and wait for the right moment to strike. And it's very hard. It's hard to describe, but yeah. Anyway, that's enough about Goblins. We're not even watching Goblins right now.
Yes. Okay, you too?
Brainstorm?
Sharon.
Good.
I know.
And really, at the end of the day, Legacy is a format that I wouldn't go as far to say maybe more than any other format, but it's definitely a format where skill and knowledge of the game, knowledge of the format is rewarded, and the cream rises to the top at large competitive events for sure. I mean, if you're in the top tables at a competitive event in the late rounds, you know what you're doing. You're not going to find many people who are like, I just started playing Legacy 2 weeks ago, and my friend let me borrow Delver. That usually doesn't happen. In my opinion. Obviously, some people are just gifted or really lucky or whatever, and they get there. But if you know what you're doing the most, you'll be all right.
The festivities. Surveil of the DRC.
All right, Doomsday resolving here. Kaplan down a game. I'm guessing Kaplan has some interaction. Just letting Doomsday resolve, though. Very punishing, but also very rewarding. Yeah.
You're up.
It's really, I mean, other than Commander, of competitive formats, the format that rewards you the most for knowing about the most cards possible, in a way. Modern, quite diverse, though. Is Goblin Charbelchel still around? Not much recently in Legacy. Is it still relevant in modern people? Belcher's still around, right?
In your deck? No. No, hey.
I'm around that.
Okay.
Somewhat relevant in modern. Okay. Haven't been following modern closely recently, but I do play the format. It is like Dredge where you have to expect it. Yeah.
Smasher is fine, but sometimes if you waste me off call sources,
Unless I get one more thing.
especially playing against Painter,
What are Eric's sleeves? I don't know.
so not being able to cast the auto smasher is a real concern.
I don't think they're Dragon Shields.
You should cut that because
Sometimes I've been thinking about
the
playing
game is dependent
like
on
control things like that.
what happens.
Four is a little expensive. It's gotta be a
Consider.
Okay, sure. I'll be on the play this time, I think.
Yeah.
I ran out of volcano.
Put that in my hand.
Okay, Petal went into hand off Consider. Played now.
And pass you.
Triggers.
Yep.
No flips on the Delvers. Swinging for 2, putting Eric down to 3. Is there a Bolt? Wasteland. Murktide. Doesn't seem like Kaplan has any relevant interaction at the moment.
When people are playing a lot of deep decks, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But when people are playing a lot of like random
Play or
the Great Creator deck, yeah, it's pretty good.
Wow, I did not expect that. I thought for sure the last cards in hand were going to be like Force Days or something. Okay.
I think this matchup is bad.
About developing
Damn.
a deck
You're playing like 32 lands?
for this. Like Eldrazi tech.
All right. Players had fun. Doomsday gets there.